True DoorDash Horror Stories. Story 1. The wrong door. Sarah had been delivering for DoorDash for almost 6 months when she got the order that would change everything. It was a cold Tuesday night in November, and she was trying to make her rent money before the month ended. The order came in around 11:30 p.m., Chinese food from Golden Dragon, delivering to 1247 Maple Street. The GPS led her through the older part of town, where the streetlights were dim and half the houses looked abandoned. She'd delivered here before, but never this late. The houses were spaced far apart, with long driveways disappearing into darkness. When she pulled up to 1247 Maple Street, something felt off immediately. The house was completely dark except for a single porch light that flickered on and off every few seconds. The yard was overgrown, and an old sedan sat in the driveway with flat tires and rust eating through the paint. Sarah grabbed the bag of food and walked up the cracked concrete path. The porch creaked under her feet as she approached the front door. She knocked 3 times and waited. No answer. She tried again, knocking louder this time. Still nothing. She pulled out her phone to call the customer, but there was no answer. The voicemail was just heavy breathing and then a click. Sarah felt her skin crawl, but she needed the money. She decided to try one more time. As she raised her hand to knock again, the door slowly creaked open. Not all the way, just a few inches. Through the crack, she could see nothing but darkness inside. "Hello?" she called out. "DoorDash delivery for Kevin?" A voice came from inside, but it didn't sound right. It was too deep, too rough, like someone trying to disguise their real voice. "Leave it by the door," the voice said. Sarah set the bag down and stepped back, but as she turned to leave, she heard the voice again. "Wait." She froze. The door opened a little wider, and she could make out a shape in the darkness. Tall, thin, wearing what looked like a hoodie pulled up over their head. "Come closer," the voice said. Every instinct in Sarah's body told her to run, but she was curious despite her fear. She took a small step forward. "I need to ask you something," the voice continued. "Do you know what happened to the last delivery person who came here?" Sarah's heart started racing. "What do you mean?" "She was about your height, your age. Pretty like you." The shape in the doorway shifted, and Sarah caught a glimpse of something metallic in their hand. She didn't want to come inside either. That was enough for Sarah. She turned and ran toward her car as fast as she could. Behind her, she heard the door slam open and heavy footsteps on the porch. "Come back," the voice shouted, but now it sounded different, younger, more desperate. "Please come back." Sarah reached her car and fumbled with the keys, her hands shaking so badly she could barely get them in the ignition. In her rearview mirror, she saw the figure standing at the end of the driveway watching her. As she drove away, she called DoorDash support to report what happened. The representative seemed confused. "Ma'am, we don't show any order for 1247 Maple Street tonight, and our system shows you completed your last delivery at 10:45 p.m. Sarah looked at her phone. The order was gone from her app, like it had never existed. She drove straight to the police station and told them everything. The officer who took her statement looked uncomfortable as he wrote it down. "Miss, we've had reports about that address before," he said. 3 different delivery drivers in the past year. All reported similar experiences. What did you find when you investigated?" The officer set down his pen and looked at her seriously. "That house has been empty for 2 years. The owner, Kevin Morrison, died in 2022. Natural causes, they said, but..." He paused. "He was found 3 days after he died, sitting in a chair by the front door, like he was waiting for someone." Sarah felt sick. But someone ordered food. Someone was in there. That's what the others said too. "We've checked the house multiple times. It's empty. Utilities are shut off. No one has keys except the bank." Sarah never delivered in that part of town again, but sometimes late at night when she was driving home from her shift, her phone would buzz with a notification. When she checked it, there would be an order for 1247 Maple Street scheduled for delivery. The customer name was always Kevin. She always declined those orders, but she heard from other drivers that someone kept accepting them. and those drivers never came back to work the next day. The house still stands on Maple Street. If you drive by at night, sometimes you can see a figure in the window watching the road, waiting for the next delivery that will never come. Story 2. The basement kitchen. Marcus thought he'd seen everything in his 2 years of DoorDash driving. Late-night deliveries to sketchy neighborhoods, customers who answered the door in their underwear, houses that reeked of things he didn't want to identify. But the order he got on that rainy Thursday night was different from anything before. It came through around 1:15 a.m., a massive order from Subway worth over $200. 15 different sandwiches, chips, cookies, the works. The address was 891 Elm Drive, way out in the suburbs where the houses were big and expensive. Marcus was tired and wanted to go home, but $200 orders usually meant good tips. He accepted it and drove to the Subway that was still open 24 hours. When he walked in, the place was empty except for one employee, a young guy who looked exhausted. "You here for the Elm Drive order?" the employee asked. "Yeah, that's me." The guy shook his head as he started pulling sandwiches from the warming tray. "This is the third time this week someone's ordered this exact same thing. 15 sandwiches, same combinations, same address." "Maybe they're having a lot of parties," Marcus said, "at 1 a.m. And it's always just one person who picks it up. Never the same person, though." The employee bagged everything up. "Just seems weird, you know?" Marcus thanked him and loaded the bags into his car. The drive to Elm Drive took about 20 minutes through winding suburban streets. These were the kind of houses where doctors and lawyers lived. Big lawns, circular driveways, 3-car garages. Number 891 was at the end of a cul-de-sac. It was a massive colonial house, but something about it looked wrong. All the windows were dark except for one small one that seemed to be glowing with a strange orange light. And that window looked like it was below ground level. Marcus parked in the circular driveway and gathered the bags. There had to be at least 40 pounds of food. As he walked to the front door, he noticed the lawn was perfectly maintained, but there were no cars in the driveway and no lights on in the main part of the house. He rang the doorbell and waited. After a few minutes, he heard footsteps inside, but they sounded like they were coming from below him, getting closer. The door opened, and a middle-aged woman stood there. She was well-dressed but looked exhausted with dark circles under her eyes. "DoorDash?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am." "Big order from Subway." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you so much. Could you help me carry it downstairs? My husband is waiting with the rest of the family." Something about her tone made Marcus uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, but we're not supposed to go inside customers' houses. Company policy." Her smile faltered. "Please, it's really heavy and I have a bad back. Just to the basement." "It'll take 2 seconds." Marcus looked at the bags in his hands. It really was a lot of food, and she did look like she might have trouble carrying it. Against his better judgment, he nodded. "Just to the stairs," he said. She led him through a dark hallway to a door that opened to a staircase going down. The orange light he'd seen from outside was coming from down there, and he could hear voices, lots of them, talking quietly. "Just set it at the bottom of the stairs," the woman said. "Thank you so much." As Marcus walked down the steps, the voices got clearer, but something was wrong with them. They all sounded exactly the same, like the same person talking to themselves over and over. At the bottom of the stairs was a large basement that had been converted into some kind of dining area. There was a long table set for 15 people, but the people sitting at the table made Marcus's blood run cold. They were all identical, exactly identical. 15 copies of the same man, all wearing the same clothes, all sitting in the exact same position. They turned to look at Marcus in perfect unison, and they all smiled the exact same smile. "Thank you for bringing our food," they all said at the same time in the same voice. Marcus dropped the bags and ran. He took the stairs 3 at a time, pushed past the woman, and burst out the front door. Behind him, he could hear her calling, "Wait! Don't you want your tip?" He dove into his car and sped away, his hands shaking on the steering wheel. In his rearview mirror, he saw all 15 identical men standing on the front porch. watching him drive away. The next day, Marcus called DoorDash to report what happened, but they told him there was no record of an order to 891 Elm Drive. When he called the subway, the employee he'd talked to said he'd never seen Marcus before in his life. Marcus drove back to Elm Drive the next week during the day this time. The house was empty with a "for sale" sign in the front yard. According to the realtor, it had been empty for 6 months, but Marcus knew what he'd seen. And sometimes, late at night when he was finishing his deliveries, he would get orders for large amounts of food to addresses that didn't exist. Orders for 15 identical meals. He never accepted those orders. But he heard from other drivers that someone always did, and those drivers always came back changed. They would start acting strangely, showing up to work at the exact same time, ordering the exact same lunch, saying the exact same things. Marcus quit DoorDash after that, but sometimes he still gets notifications on his phone, even though he deleted the app months ago. Orders for 891 Elm Drive, 15 sandwiches, all the same. And in the reflection of his phone screen, sometimes he swears he can see 15 identical faces, all smiling back at him. Story 3. The timer Jessica had a rule about late-night deliveries: never take orders after midnight. She'd been driving for DoorDash for over a year, and had learned that nothing good happened after the bars closed and the normal people went to bed. But on this particular Saturday night in December, she was behind on her car payment and needed the money. When the order came through at 12:47 a.m., she almost declined it automatically. Then she saw the payout: $45 for what should have been a simple delivery. The restaurant was Pizza Palace, just 10 minutes away, and the address was in a decent neighborhood. The customer name was listed as Timer. Weird name, but Jessica had delivered to people with stranger names before. She accepted the order. Pizza Palace was nearly empty when she arrived. The teenager working behind the counter looked relieved to see her. "Thank God," he said. "That order's been sitting here for 2 hours." 2 hours? "The order just came through on my app 20 minutes ago." The kid shrugged. "I don't know about that, but we made this pizza at 10:30. The customer called 3 times asking where it was, getting more and more angry each time. Then he just stopped calling. Jessica looked at the receipt taped to the pizza box. The timestamp said 10:31 p.m., but that was impossible. She checked her phone again. The order had definitely come through at 12:47 a.m. "What did the customer sound like when he called?" she asked. The teenager shifted uncomfortably. "That's the weird thing. Each time he called, his voice sounded different. First time he sounded normal, maybe middle-aged. Second time he sounded older, angrier. Third time..." The kid paused. "Third time he sounded like he was crying. And he kept saying, 'I'm running out of time,' over and over." Jessica felt a chill but took the pizza anyway. The address was 1455 Oak Avenue, about 15 minutes away. As she drove through the quiet suburban streets, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The timestamp discrepancy bothered her, and the story about the phone calls was just plain creepy. Oak Avenue was a street of modest ranch houses, most of them dark at this late hour. Number 1455 was in the middle of the block, and unlike the other houses, every light was on. Not just the porch light or a few windows. Every single light in the house was blazing. Jessica parked in front of the house and grabbed the pizza. As she walked up the driveway, she could see through the windows. The house looked like it was set up for a party that no one had come to. There were balloons, streamers, and what looked like a birthday cake on the dining room table. She knocked on the front door and waited. Almost immediately, she heard running footsteps inside, like someone had been standing right by the door waiting for her. The door opened, and a man in his 50s stood there. He was sweating despite the cold weather, and his eyes were wide with what looked like panic. "You're late," he said breathlessly. "You're so late." "I'm sorry, sir. I got here as fast as I could. That'll be $23.50. The man looked at his watch and made a sound that was half sob, half laugh. "Do you know what time it is?" Jessica checked her phone. "It's 1:15 a.m. "No," the man said, shaking his head frantically. "That's not right. It can't be right." He grabbed Jessica's wrist and pulled her inside before she could protest. The house was decorated for what looked like a child's birthday party, but there were no children anywhere. "Look at the clocks," the man said, pointing around the room. Jessica looked and felt her stomach drop. There were clocks everywhere, on the walls, on shelves, sitting on tables. Digital clocks, analog clocks, grandfather clocks, and they were all showing different times. Some showed 10:30 p.m., others showed 2:45 a.m., one showed 6:17 p.m. "They won't stop," the man said, his voice breaking. "Ever since my son. Ever since the accident. The clocks won't keep the right time. And I keep ordering the same pizza over and over, trying to get it delivered at the right time." "What right time?" Jessica asked, backing toward the door. The man looked at her with tears in his eyes. "The time he was supposed to come home. The time before everything went wrong. If I can just get the timing right, maybe." He trailed off and looked at one of the clocks on the wall. It was ticking backward. "He was coming home from a friend's party," the man continued. "I ordered his favorite pizza as a surprise. He was supposed to be here at 10:30, but there was an accident. A drunk driver ran a red light and—" The man's voice broke completely. "The pizza arrived at 10:31, 1 minute after. 1 minute too late. If I had ordered it just 1 minute later, maybe he would have been inside. Maybe he would have been safe." Jessica realized with growing horror that the man was trying to recreate the night his son died, over and over, trying to change the outcome by timing the pizza delivery differently. "Sir, I think you need help," she said gently. "This isn't healthy." The man laughed, but it was a broken sound. "Help? I've tried everything. Doctors, therapists, medication. Nothing works. The only thing that helps is trying again, getting the timing right." As he spoke, Jessica noticed that some of the clocks had started chiming, even though they all showed different times. The sound was overwhelming, disorienting. "I have to go," she said, heading for the door. "Wait," the man called after her. "What time will you be here next time? I need to know so I can order at the right moment." Jessica ran to her car without answering. As she drove away, she could see the man standing in his brightly lit window, surrounded by all those clocks, checking his watch. She reported the incident to DoorDash, but they said they had no record of an order to that address. When she drove by the house the next day, it was dark and empty, with a "for rent" sign in the yard, but Jessica kept getting orders from Timer. They came at different times, always to the same address, always for the same pizza. Each time she declined them, but she would see other drivers accept them. Those drivers would come back to work the next day, but they were different. They would constantly check their watches and phones, obsessing over exact delivery times. Some of them quit after a few days. Others just disappeared entirely. Jessica eventually learned the truth about 1455 Oak Avenue from a local newspaper article. A man named David Timer had lived there with his 12-year-old son. After his son was killed in a car accident, David became obsessed with the timing of events that night. He was found dead in his house 6 months later, surrounded by hundreds of clocks all set to different times. The coroner said he died of a heart attack, but the house was filled with pizza boxes. Dozens of them, all from the same night, all delivered at different times. Jessica quit DoorDash after reading that article. But sometimes, late at night, her phone still buzzes with notifications. Orders from Timer, always for the same pizza, always to 1455 Oak Avenue. And every time she declines, she can't help but wonder, what if she accepted just once? What if she could deliver that pizza at exactly the right time? But she never does. Because she knows that some things can't be fixed, no matter how many times you try. And some customers will never stop ordering, no matter how many times their pizza arrives too late.